Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. This is going to be, like I said earlier, a little bit of a shorter seminar as we're going through just these three issues we're going to be talking about today, um, which is tariffs, immigration policy, and the big beautiful bill. So, of course, talking is when I start coughing. Okay, so I think somebody's got somebody needs to mute over there, but Dan, I'm going to mute you, okay?
Please.
Okay. Okay. So as we all know, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and the thing we wanted to focus on today is on the tariffs, immigration policy, and the big beautiful bill. And we're going to have a seminar tomorrow, which is to go through things in greater detail. But I found that there was so much going on in these topics that I thought it would make sense to do the seminar just on this. So when we look at this, we'll just get right down to it. It shows you that the impact of the tariffs is going to be like on GDP growth, it's going to be slightly negative. Immigration is going to be slightly negative. But deregulation is going to be a positive as far as that goes. And we'll see later that the fiscal stimulus from these things is actually going to be a little bit to the positive. So that's the basic gist of the overall economic impact of what's going on with this. And um, now, when we look at this with tariffs, uh, the main thing to think about is when you take a step back, like it's obvious that tariffs are being enacted, and Trump has gotten a lot of concessions from a lot of different countries, and the projections are we're going to raise like potentially like $2.8 trillion as a result of the tariffs, um, which is good. I guess the question is, what are we trying to accomplish with the tariffs? Is it to protect domestic industries? If the thing is going to actually work the way Trump said it was going to work, then that would mean that the tariff revenue should go down as companies start bringing more of their manufacturing here. My view is that manufacturing will start coming back to the United States, and we do have a little bit of a tweak in your portfolios for that because I think that it's going to happen. But I don't necessarily think there's going to be a lot of jobs going to be brought back for that because I think there's going to be a lot of robots doing those particular jobs. With respect to the revenues, we said, like I said, they've been 2.8 trillion. And certain strategic industries we might want to protect as well. So the only problem is that, and sometimes it's for political leverage. Sometimes you want to get certain things out of these countries, and we are like one of the things we got from Europe is that Europe agreed to buy a whole lot of natural gas from us, and other countries have agreed to buy things from us. So we're using that, really the tariffs as an opportunity to get something from these countries. So what happens with that is like the problem is that uh, the global economy is very complicated. I thought that this slide was really interesting because it shows you like one car parts journey through the US, Canada, and Mexico before tariffs. And by the way, this is all going to be recorded. This is all recorded. So if anybody wants to study these slides in any great depth, but this kind of shows you how this one part went to Mexico, Canada, and then to the United States to go into a car. And that's where, a lot of these companies, like the car companies, have built up these very intricate, uh, uh, you know, complex manufacturing systems. And this is kind of making it very difficult to plan because you can't just build a manufacturing plant overnight. It's going to, manufacturing plants can take, 5 to 10 years to build. So it's adding a whole layer of complexity to these corporations. Now, this is kind of looks as one example. And this is just showing you like a cup of coffee as to how much it costs and the different tariffs you have. And this, could be updated because the tariffs with China are lower than this, but it basically shows you that things are getting to be more expensive. Now, it's interesting. The question is with these tariffs, with the $2.8 trillion that I mentioned, that the tariffs are going to raise in revenue. The question is who's paying for that, and that's really one of the big issues that's going on now. In the beginning of this, I think companies were like kind of hanging back, and they were saying Well, we'll just eat our costs a little bit more. We won't our margins will go down a little bit. We won't make as much money. But as the tariffs look like they're now being instituted, they are starting to come out there and they're starting to raise prices. And I know that Goldman Sachs came out and said that 70% of the cost of these tariffs are going to be borne by the consumers. I know that the Trump administration had questions about that. But basically, somebody's going to be paying for this, and if tariffs are enacted and companies have to start, their margins go down, which means that they're going to make a little bit less money. That's the potential that we have to look out for, that the economy could slow down, and that's really potentially what can happen, the slowdown of the economy for that then too. So, but it remains to be seen what's going to happen with this. When we look at this, tariff rates decline down over time. Everybody talks about this, what happened in the 1920s with the Smoot-Hawley Act, and we've had lower tariffs for a long period of time, and now there's something around 16 to 18% is what they seem to be at right now. So when we look at this, what happened during the last trade war, this kind of shows you that the prices were boosted over a period of time, that the consumers actually did, the prices did go up on those things as the tariffs were enacted then. As far as the tariffs on U.S. imports, it shows you here that basically tariffs have gone up, historically a lot. That's really what we look at over here. And we are raising money from this thing. So, it's kind of a big experiment that's going on right before our eyes right now. And this, and again, this shows you, like I said, the $2.8 trillion that's being raised over here, which is a lot of money. But again, a lot of these costs are going to maybe be enacted on the consumers or on the corporations. And because of that, that could slow down GDP, which is what we saw in that first slide over there then too. And what this is kind of like the key point here is that what happened in 2018 is that tariffs were enacted and there was a lot of turmoil. The stock market did go down. But ultimately, after that, in 2019, the stock market did go up after the trade tensions moderated. And the question is, are tariffs going to be like a one-time impact on inflation, or are they going to be, a constant thing? And a lot of economists think it's really going to be more of a one-time impact, and they'll moderate over time once people adjust to these new rates. But it is a little bit more of a challenging time right now for corporations and also for consumers who are dealing with these tariffs have been enacted. And this is kind of showing you, basically the tariff rates have jumped up quite substantially. So this is one of the things that, tariff rates have gone up. And basically the question is, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. And it's one of those things that we really have to just see what's going to happen with that. But I think that, the corporations are starting to have higher prices because they're in business to make money. They're not going to keep on eating the cost of the tariffs with that then too. Now this is kind of like the key chart over here that came out that I found that showed that basically and tariffs were the problem with doing this seminar is I wanted to do this like in the middle of July, but the information kept on changing on me as time went on. So with this, it kind of shows you just as a baseline, like right now, we're probably in this tariff rate around 18%. And this shows, no recession with that, but it's slower growth. And the risk is like 45%, and GDP is going to go down and be slower than what it was before. And the original baseline we started at before with like tariffs are like 7%, and the risk was really low of recession. So we're not quite in a recession thing, but we have a little bit greater chance of a recession, and the tariff rates are going to. But according to this, what they're saying here, it doesn't look like there's going to be a recession. But if tariffs get enacted to be much greater, like we were talking with China having 125% tariffs and other things like that. The tariff rates get to 27%, then you get a much clearer chance of having a recession there then. And this basically shows you, and there was a lot of this government information, the information that's coming out on what's going on with the economy. It's like the GDP went down, and a lot of that was a result of like companies they bought a lot of stuff earlier in the year because the tariffs were being enacted. This I think is a core GDP is probably a better way of looking at what's really going on in the economy, and it just shows you the economy is slowing down, but it's still positive as far as that goes. So that's questions. That's what's going on with tariffs. And I'm gonna, later on if people have questions, and I don't want to make this into a political discussion, but we can talk about some of the things going on with that. Now, regards to the big beautiful bill, and that's what it's called, is this kind of shows you what's the impact of the deficit, and this is kind of interesting. It shows you that the tax cuts that were proposed to expire, they didn't, and that's going to increase the deficit. And this kind of shows you the economic impact of this big beautiful bill is it's going to give a positive boost. Most of it, which is interesting. So the forecast, which I've seen from a couple different people, is that I think J.P. Morgan's was talking about this, is that the economy should slow down a little bit as a result of the tariffs right now, but in March, the first quarter of next year of 2026, everybody's going to get back their refund checks, and basically as a result of that, there should be a boost to the economy at that particular point in time, and that should carry on for a few more years for that then too. So that's what's going on right now. Is you're going to have a slowdown as a result of the tariffs, and then you're going to have an increase, in GDP as a result of the budget bill. Now we have the budget bill, basically the big beautiful bill which came out, which is stimulating the economy. People got spending cuts. And other things like that enacted. And what's going to happen with that is that there is going to be, like I said, a stimulus of about 1% to GDP. And this at first I thought was a really complicated slide, but I think it's kind of interesting because there's talk to say that the budget, that the big beautiful bill will not increase the deficit. This kind of shows you, which I thought was really fascinating, for that not to happen, to increase the deficit, interest rates would have to go down to 1.5%, inflation would have to be 4%, and real growth would be much higher than it would be right there. So I think these are just some interesting things to look at to say it's not going to happen. All those things are really somewhat far-fetched in my mind, that interest rates are going to go down that low and inflation will be that high and real growth will be that high. I think these are, when you look at the CBO baseline and what they're talking about, which I think is more accurate, it shows you that there's going to be an increase in a deficit. I do believe that. Now the question is it going to be a real issue with regards to that? And basically we're increasing the deficit quite a lot going forward. So, and what that's doing is, when you look at and we'll talk about this more tomorrow night. When you look at the overall budget, a larger share of the budget right now is going towards funding the debt. So with that, it's going to crowd out other things we have that we're spending money on, and that gets to be very problematic. I know that, Trump wants to really have, the Fed to reduce interest rates, and the Fed is like, holding back a little bit on that. And that's really the question as to what's going to happen with all that. I think the Fed will reduce interest rates in the next quarter or two. And that's something that will a little bit help this this debt issue. But overall, you need to spend less money, and you need to increase more money in taxes. So that's really why the deficit's going to go up. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about tonight is regarding immigration, which it's actually we're actually fewer people are coming to the United States across the borders, and we are actually, they're deporting a lot of people. So with that, there's certain industries that are really being impacted like this, in the construction industry, agriculture, like, who's picking all the, milking the cows, and who's picking all the crops and all that. And there's other services as well. Like, I know that, when I got my roof done, I think if I said I was from the immigration group, I think that probably nobody would be over there then too. So it's one of those things that, basically that's going to ultimately, what's interesting about that is that in the short term, the labor shortage is going to lead to higher prices for the people who are working. You're going to have to pay more for those workers, and those workers getting paid. That's good for them, but ultimately that's going to probably lead to higher prices and maybe a little bit more inflation as a result of that then too. So it's good for the workers who are getting those higher wages, but for us who are paying for that, that could be somewhat inflationary. So, and this is really the baselines of all these different things going on over here. It kind of shows you like, you know, 1 million deportations a year, you know, 3 million workers out of the workforce, and that will increase wages a little bit. This shows you like 2.8 million deportations a year, 7 million workers out of the workforce by 2028. That's going to increase, you know, the wages a lot. And this is like one of the things that they're looking at over here is that, you know,
Here's the thing, if you want to listen to this.
yeah, Bill, I'm going to mute you, okay? This is kind of looking over here to consumption tax revenue and showing what's going on with consumption and also with the tax revenue. So, you know, the migrants that are there, they are buying things, and that actually helps GDP a little bit. And also the tax revenue, they are paying into the government for, you know, some things as well, and that's going to be a slowdown from that as well. So that's basically the gist of what we're looking at, and this is really like the summary, the big summary that we have of what we just talked about over here. This is just talking about, you know, the trade, like with a 16% forecasted effective tax rate, immigration of 500,000 people, net immigration coming in a year, and the budget net increase of 2.4 trillion, and the effects of deregulation on antitrust, energy, and financial. It's kind of a muted picture. Like I said, it looks like what's going to happen is the economy will slow down a little bit in the next quarter or two, and then in the first quarter it's going to have this positive impact as a result of what's going on with the tax cut investment effect and the consumption effect of that, and then it's going to, you know, basically go on from there. And it's, you know, the cumulative effect of this, you know, going over the next few years, you know, it's still, the economy will be growing a little bit, but it's not going to be growing to any great extent. So my forecast is I think the economy is going to grow very slowly going forward as a result of all the things going on over there. So, this is going to be a much shorter presentation because I only have a few slides, and that is basically it. So, if anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself and I can see if I can answer those. And if not, we'll all see you tomorrow night then. Does anybody have any questions? So for those who are interested, tomorrow night is where I go through a crazy amount of slides. We're going to be talking about the impact of these things, but I just wanted to have these separated out because I thought that these are the most timely and relevant things. But the impact of what you want to do with all this and how you know, how to invest, that's things we'll be talking about more tomorrow night. Tomorrow night also we have some like 15 slides which I added about should you diversify from the Mag 7, and there's a really interesting slide there. We talk about, you know, the stocks that everybody was excited about in the year 2000, the top 10 of the S&P 500 for in the year 2000. There's only one company right now that's still in the top 10, and that's Microsoft. So it kind of shows you how things change and why it's important to diversify into a number of different things. So that's a little commercial for tomorrow night. And anybody have any questions? Or
is NVIDIA falling out of favor on that stuff as well? So they're not in the top 10 either?
NVIDIA is
They were
definitely in
doing
the
all
top.
the AI, you know.
NVIDIA is definitely in the top 10 now, and they're like a huge company. But the question is, can they maintain that growth? I don't want to steal the thunder for tomorrow night, but you know, it shows like companies like Lucent and GE and companies like that. Those were some companies in the top 10 in the year 2000. So those companies all seem like they were conquering the world, but you know, things change as time goes on. For that then. But that's tomorrow night's seminar. Does anybody have any questions about this, or should I just, if people want to talk to me privately, do how all I have my number? and we can talk about that as well.
Steve,
Yes.
when will tomorrow's presentation be online? I can't make tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to catch it after the fact.
I would think it should be like in probably sometime in the middle of next week. But
Very good.
but Dan, if you ever want to, if anybody on this presentation, they want to know how to get to these presentation, all the seminars that I have here from the last bit of time, they're
Mhm.
all here. If anybody wants to see on the 2020 Hindsight channel. So we got to get rid of this one because Trump had to invest now. We changed that and this guide to retirement. And then next, so they'll all be here. Anybody who wants to just check, we'll email you when it's available. But that's where it'll be over here on the website under the 2020 Hindsight channel.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Dan. I got a ball game tomorrow night.
Okay. Well, that's all good. Well, everybody have fun. The beautiful thing about this and why people can show up or not show up is I know a lot of people couldn't make this tonight. We still got a pretty good crowd. But it's all gonna be there. And I realize I go through these slides very, very quickly. I could actually probably talk about any one of these slides for a half hour or so. But it's just to kind of give you a gist of what's going on in the world. And the world is a very confusing place right now. There's a lot of things going on in it, and I just wanted everybody to be apprised of, what I found, this information, and tomorrow we'll talk more about how to react to all this information. So, if nobody has any additional questions, we'll see you tomorrow night, or we'll see you online, or reach out to me, and we'll talk more about it.
Thanks, Steve.
Easy.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
Thanks,
Okay.
Steve.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
Is everybody showing their faces? We have the big sign off over here. It's like roll call at the Yankee Stadium here. I'll see you tomorrow, Brian.
All right.
Oh, the other Brian.
Yeah.
You're my two Brians that are wise. That must be the cool way of spelling Brian, I guess, right?
That's the right way. The right way.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Bill, you can talk now if you want. You're on twice. Okay. I'll see you guys another time, and I will talk to you soon. Okay. Bye.
Take care.